At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
Hey, want a cookie? Oh, I know you just ate, so you're craving something a little sweet. Besides, one cookie isn't gonna kill you. How about half? Just a bite? Bite it. Bite it. Bite it.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. Your affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on a path to successful weight loss by quieting food noise.
Bite it.
Shh. Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm discussing the case of Amy Mihaljevic. Back in October 1989, 10-year-old Amy began receiving phone calls from a man who claimed to work with her mom. This man told Amy that her mom got a promotion at work, and he needed Amy's help picking out a gift. They arranged to meet up, and Amy was never seen alive again. Despite an extensive investigation with tens of thousands of hours spent on leads and potential suspects, her case remains unsolved to this day. But as of recording this episode, just a few weeks ago, investigators say that they have brand new evidence that they hope will finally lead to answers. This is the case of Amy Mihaljevic. On Friday, October 27, 1989, at about 3 p.m., 13-year-old Jason Mihaljevic is returning home from school in Bay Village. It's a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. He expected to find his 10-year-old sister, Amy, home from Bay Village Middle School, where she was a 5th-grade student. But Amy wasn't there. So Jason just followed his routine. Every day after school, he and Amy would call their mom, Margaret, who worked at Trading Times magazine, to tell them that they got home from school safe. So Jason calls his mom at work and says that he's home, but Amy isn't there. Now, she isn't really overly concerned at this point. Amy had mentioned going to choir tryouts after school, so she just told Jason to call again if Amy wasn't home by 3:30. So at 3:30, when Amy still wasn't home, Jason did exactly that. Now, at this point, Margaret started getting ready to go home and just figure out what's going on. But then, between 3:30 and 4 p.m., Amy called her. She sounded totally normal, like any other check-in on any other day. So Margaret assumed that Amy was calling from home. Margaret later discussed this call in an interview with Cleveland magazine. She said that she asked Amy how the tryouts went, and Amy responded, okay. When she asked how Amy was doing, it was another brief response, fine. The conversation was short. It ended with bye and see you soon. So Margaret just goes back to work, and she gets home sometime between 4:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. depending on the source. Of course, when she gets home, she realizes that Amy wasn't there, and likely didn't make the call from the house. So Margaret starts calling around to friends and neighbors to see if anyone had seen Amy, but no one had. She also retraced Amy's usual route from home to school, and then she found it. Amy's bike was still locked up at the bike rack. Margaret later told Cleveland magazine, quote, I knew right then it was something terrible. I never said it, but that bike. I was sick. I was shaking. I knew something terrible had happened to Amy. End quote. At about 6, Margaret drove to the Bay Village Police Department to report Amy missing. At first, they weren't really alarmed. Bay Village was known to be a very safe place, but they did take immediate action and went to Amy's home to investigate. And really, this is the scene that Amy's dad, Mark, walks into. He was actually on a work trip about 4 hours away in Cincinnati. And because everything happened so fast, he just had no idea what was going on. But once he got home and heard the news, he immediately took their dog Jake and began searching for Amy. And again, everything is still happening just really fast. By 7 p.m., there was a full-scale search with volunteers and authorities looking for Amy. Meanwhile, Margaret stayed home and kept making calls to anyone she could think of. And the mother of Amy's best friend rushed to a news station with Amy's school photo. She insisted they show it on TV. She waited there for hours, refusing to leave until they did. Of course, while all these searches were happening, investigators spoke with Amy's family and her classmates to figure out her movements that day. They learned that Amy left for school at around 7:20 a.m. and rode her bike. Her brother Jason had already left for school. Usually, Amy rode to school with her best friend Christy, but that day she rode alone. Amy got to school and parked her bike in the usual spot. She was present for classes, and sometime before lunch, a police officer came to talk to the students about the risks of talking to and going places with strangers. And during lunch, Amy told her friends a secret. She planned to meet a man who worked with her mom after school. Amy had multiple conversations with this man. He called her home and suggested that they buy a gift for her mom, who he said had gotten a promotion at work. This man asked Amy to meet him after school at a shopping center called Bay Village Square. He said he'd pick her up there and take her somewhere else to go shopping. He also asked her to keep this a secret, so it could be a surprise for her mom. And he specifically said that he picked Amy because she was better at keeping secrets than her brother was. Of course, Amy is 10 and up against an adult predator, so she agrees, thinking she's just doing something nice for her mom. But after telling her friends about her plans with this mystery man, Amy attends classes like normal for the rest of the school day. When classes ended around 2 p.m., she made the about 5-minute walk from her school to the shopping center with some friends. Now, this wasn't unusual. A lot of kids would go there after school to grab ice cream. And because it was right across the street from the police station, most parents weren't really concerned. During this walk, Amy mentioned that she was meeting a friend. And at about 2:15 p.m., 2 10-year-old students saw Amy waiting by a pole near Baskin-Robbins and the barber shop. It looked like she was waiting for someone. Then, they saw a white man approach Amy directly, indicating that he recognized her. The man and Amy started talking. Then they walked through the parking lot. One of the students noted that the man had his hand on Amy's back. Unfortunately, they didn't see where they went or if they got into a vehicle. But we know that's not where Amy's trail ends. Again, during that call, Amy seemed okay, so her mom assumed she was at home. But authorities were never able to trace the call to see where it came from. But investigators do find information about this call very valuable. What caught their attention was the fact that the abductor allowed Amy to call her mom after abducting her. This told them that the abductor was probably pretty bold, and that somehow he very likely knew that Amy and her brother always called their mom when they got home from school. He knew their family's routine and where Margaret worked. This was planned out in advance. Police later told Dateline that they thought that the person who took Amy had done this before. Now, they couldn't say for sure that he kidnapped anyone previously, but they felt like he was likely to have at least assaulted a child and gotten away with it. Their hunch was that this person, whoever they were, had done this before. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together. And Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice. When the police spoke to Amy's parents and her brother Jason, they said that they had no idea that Amy had plans to meet anyone. Jason did say that he had overheard her talking to someone on the phone, but he didn't know the details of who or what was happening. Amy's dad Mark and her best friend Christy later explained to WKYC that Amy knew what stranger danger was. I mean, they were literally talking about it in class on the day that Amy was abducted. But I do think it's important to note that Amy was going through a tough time in October 1989. Her parents were having marital problems and were heading toward a divorce. Amy was also a mama's girl who wanted nothing more than to make her mom happy. It really feels like this combination of factors led her to ignoring this stranger danger rule that she knew well. And of course, I also think it's worth keeping in mind that through this series of phone calls, this person saying that they worked with Amy's mom. For a 10-year-old, he likely didn't feel like a stranger by the time they met at the shopping center. Either way, at this point, obviously the police were pretty sure that Amy had been kidnapped, so they called in the FBI for assistance. Later, those two kids who saw Amy at the shopping center gave enough information to authorities so that they could commission a sketch of the man Amy was last seen with. He was described as a white male, aged 30 to 35, standing between 5'8" and 5'10", with a medium build. He had dark hair, possibly curly, and a bald spot on the top or rear of his head. There was also a bit of beard growth. It's possible he wore round glasses and a tan jacket. Amy's family was shown this sketch, but they didn't recognize him. Really, this sketch was kind of just a shot in the dark. Police have mentioned multiple times that they're just uncertain about the accuracy of this sketch. Really, it seems like investigators were just doing everything in their power to find Amy. On the 11 o'clock news that night, Amy's school photo was shared. In the picture, Amy's shoulder-length hair is mostly down, with a side half-up, half-down ponytail. She really looks like the definition of a 10-year-old from the 80s. The news reported that police were searching for Amy around her home and the shopping center. Amy was described as being 4'10", weighing 90 pounds with a medium build, straight shoulder-length blonde hair, brown eyes, and a clear complexion. Last seen wearing green sweatpants, a green sweatshirt, a denim backpack, and unique black boots with silver studs on them. She also had on a white nylon windbreaker and horsehead silhouette turquoise earrings. That night, Margaret slept on the kitchen floor, under the phone, hoping for any news about Amy. but that call never came. The next day, October 28th, various law enforcement agencies like the Bay Village Police and the FBI, along with volunteers, continued to search for Amy. According to Cleveland.com, it was the biggest search since Beverly Potts disappeared in 1951. Amy's parents went on TV pleading for their daughter to come home. The police conducted interviews with family, friends, neighbors, and potential suspects. Amy's parents were thoroughly questioned. They cooperated fully and were quickly cleared. Other family members were examined as well, but eventually ruled out as suspects. According to reporting by WKYC, Bay Village Police collaborated with the FBI for the next 103 days, investigating around 4,000 leads. One of the most useful tips came in from a woman who described seeing a girl resembling Amy at the Westgate Mall, just about an hour after her abduction. The woman said the girl was with a man, and they were headed to the food court. Police began to wonder if Amy had called her mom from the Westgate Mall. It was only about 6 miles from where she was taken. Their line of thinking is that maybe whoever abducted Amy took her to the shopping mall, let her make the phone call. That way she felt safe. But of course, like I told you earlier, the origin of that call has never been confirmed. The police and FBI continued daily searches, while volunteers distributed flyers across the country and overseas. And Amy did get a lot of media attention. She was featured on America's Most Wanted, Unsolved Mysteries, and more. People around the world knew who Amy was. They learned that Amy was a friendly girl who enjoyed drawing and watching the Golden Girls and Dirty Dancing. That her love for animals, especially horses and her dog Jake, inspired her dream of becoming a vet, and that she often left sweet notes for her parents. But like I told you earlier, investigators believe that this man likely did this before. So they began looking for other girls who might have received similar calls from the abductor. They actually ended up sending out a questionnaire to other students in Cleveland's western suburbs, and they found that at least 2 10-year-old girls had received similar calls. Decades later, these women shared their experiences with Dateline. One woman described the caller as very persuasive and mentioned that he called repeatedly when her mother was not at home. The man also had very specific information about her family, but the call ended when she mentioned discussing this with her father. The other woman said that the caller introduced himself as his mother's boss. He even knew the correct name. He said her mom was getting a promotion, and he seemed excited about that. He also said he wanted to pick up the girl after school to choose a gift. But during this phone call, the girl then told her brother, and the man got angry with her, saying, quote, "You're going to ruin it," end quote. After this, the girl told him that she couldn't go, and he hung up. The police told Dateline that they tried to find a connection between Amy and these 2 girls, but ultimately couldn't. However, WKYC reported that the Lake Erie Nature Science Center in Bay Village was a common thread. Amy and both girls had been there before, and that the center had a guest book where visitors recorded their information. And not only that, this guest book disappeared when Amy's case gained attention. So take that for what you will. Despite the investigation and all these searches, Amy was still missing. And on December 11th, almost 2 months after Amy went missing, her mom held a birthday party for Amy's 11th birthday. Margaret's hope was that by celebrating and by inviting the media, the person who took Amy might let her come back. Amy's best friend Christy was also at the party. She told the media, quote, "Happy birthday, Amy. I hope you're still alive, and I hope you can hear me, and I hope you come home soon," end quote. It's just heartbreaking. And of course, all of this greatly impacted Amy's brother as well. He later told WKYC, quote, "I figured my parents had enough on their plate, so I sort of went in the background. I'd go in the basement and build like model cars, or take the dog out for a walk to the lake. just trying not to be in the house and be in their way, end quote. The holidays came and went with no sign of Amy. And then the new year, the new decade, 1990 was here. But not long after, Amy's loved ones got the news that no one wants to hear in the case of a missing child. Amy's body had been found. On February 8th, 1990, at around 7 in the morning, a woman who was jogging on County Road 1181 in rural Ashland County, Ohio, found Amy on the ground next to a large field. The woman rushed to the nearest house and asked them to call the police. When Amy's body was recovered, police noted that she was wearing the same shirt and pants she had on when she disappeared. However, police did suspect her clothing was removed and then put back on. And her windbreaker, boots, and earrings were not on her body. An autopsy concluded that Amy had a blunt impact injury on the left side of her head and multiple stab wounds on the left side of her neck. She had eaten at least one meal after she was taken, maybe more. And there were signs of a possible sexual assault. The medical examiner couldn't say exactly when Amy was killed, but they thought it happened within a week after she was abducted. She was then transported to where she was found, where she remained until February 8th. Police gathered all non-natural items within a mile of where Amy's body was discovered. And they didn't reveal this for many years, but they did find a few things of note. About 1,000 feet away from Amy's body, just outside a farm entrance, they found a pea-green curtain in a ditch. They also found a blanket. This curtain has been described as homemade. Investigators say that they could tell because the tabs at the top were not the same size or same distance apart. It seemed like someone took a big quilt or a bed cover and just turned it into a curtain. At first, the police weren't sure if this curtain had any connection to Amy's case, so they kept it a secret. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Let's talk about what the police did not recover anywhere. Amy's windbreaker, boots, denim backpack, a binder with Buick Best in Class written on it, and her turquoise earrings. These items have never been found. The police would also later reveal that they thought that this field was a notable area to leave Amy's body. It was about 50 miles from where Amy was abducted, and it wasn't really a place people would just stumble upon. It was far from the highway, very rural, and not easy to find. This led investigators to believe that the murderer was likely familiar with this area.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing is rare for the Keys. Any leads on who they might have been running for?
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
Amy's funeral took place just a few days after she was found, and it was reported that the entire town and more attended. Mark told Dateline that as the family drove to the funeral, they noticed that the flag was at half-mast at the police department. Following the funeral, Margaret spoke with ABC5 News about the impact of finding Amy. She said that while it did bring some closure, there would always be a void with her due to Amy's passing. She was scared and thought that whoever did this might do it again. She said that she wanted to help keep parents from dealing with this same situation that she was in. She said, quote, "There are other missing children. There are more out there. And if I can help wake up the nation to the fate of these children, I want to do it. We know the brutal fate Amy suffered. We can only imagine what torture she must have gone through. But there are other children, End quote. In the following months, Margaret continued to speak out about Amy and other missing children, even appearing on Oprah. She also created the Community Fund for Assisting Missing Youth, AMY, a nonprofit organization that pays certified teachers to educate children on how to protect themselves. But before this family knew it, the 1-year anniversary of Amy's disappearance was upon them. And on October 27, 1990, Margaret organized a memorial service for Amy in Bay Village's Central Park. There, Margaret stood beside a marble monument dedicated to Amy and encouraged everyone to remember her with positivity, to cherish the time they had with her, and to keep smiling, even though she was no longer with them. In February 1991, the police gave an update on the investigation, marking 1 year since Amy's body was found. They said that they didn't have one specific person they were focusing on, and that after dedicating 45,000 hours to the case, they hadn't made any significant progress, which was frustrating for everyone. But not long after, they had a new witness. This witness says that they saw a man near the area where Amy's body was found 13 hours before her discovery. They described this man as being in his mid-20s to 30s, standing beside a dark blue hatchback car with the hatch open. Using this information, another sketch was released. But again, it didn't really seem to lead to answers. And later that year, Mark and Margaret decided to end their marriage. Their relationship had been rocky before Amy's abduction, and ultimately just fell apart after. They divorced but remained friends. And eventually, Margaret sold their house and moved to Las Vegas where her mother lived. And unfortunately, Amy's case just sits. In 1999, Cleveland Magazine published a long-form article about Amy's murder and the ongoing investigation. Mark and Margaret spoke with the magazine about Amy, the investigation, and how the community had changed since Amy's kidnapping and murder. Margaret said, quote, "A lot more parents became aware of how fragile their children are. You think you live in some suburban bubble. But evil has a way of happening. There are cruel people out there. Harsh people. It still hurts. It's very painful, but I'm not the only one hurting. It affected so many." End quote. Now, the FBI also collaborated with the magazine and shared exclusive information, including details about potential suspects. An agent mentioned that out of the hundreds and hundreds of people they investigated, only about 20 to 25 were interesting. However, none of them appeared to be the actual perpetrator. And it was here for the first time that the FBI disclosed that Amy's windbreaker, backpack, GM folder, earrings, and boots were never located. Of course, they say that they're unsure of what happened to these items, but they speculated that the killer might have kept them as some sort of memento, or maybe gifted them to another girl. The FBI further released a profile of the killer. Of course, we know that these profiles are not foolproof, but I think it's worth mentioning. They said that at the time of the abduction and murder, the killer was a white man in his late 30s, which the FBI noted is older than most first-time child aggressors. They believe the killer was average in terms of height, weight, and build. He appeared presentable, but was not accomplished or professional. They believed he likely didn't fit in well with his peers, especially women. People who knew him would describe him as odd or difficult. He likely lived alone, with one roommate, or at his parents' house. It's unlikely he had a successful marriage or a normal family life. Before the crime, the killer probably underwent a significant change in behavior, personality, or appearance. He might have developed a sudden obsession or experienced a personal crisis. Something drastic happened in his life in the fall of 1989, possibly a stressor that pushed him from his fantasy to action. They mentioned that this stress may have led to visible changes in his physical appearance, like long or short hair, weight fluctuations, or a decline in health. The FBI believes that the killer didn't just pass through the Bay Village area randomly. He had a reason to know the area, maybe as a resident, contract worker, or delivery person. He was familiar with Bay Square and chose that location because he needed a place where he could move around without being noticed easily. The location in Ashland County was also carefully chosen. because he wanted to dispose of evidence without getting caught. He had been to Country Road 1181 before and knew he could hide Amy's body there and have her go undiscovered for weeks or months. The FBI also believes that the killer had detailed personal knowledge about the family. So, along with providing all this new information, the FBI also offered a $10,000 reward. But again, despite all these efforts, the case remained unsolved. Unfortunately, in 2001, Margaret passed away at age 54, never knowing what happened to her daughter. But she was laid to rest beside Amy. Many people have speculated that Amy's murder had a deep impact on Margaret's health, leading to her untimely death. Margaret's mother told the News Journal, quote, "She never got over losing her little girl, little Amy. The lupus probably killed her, but the depression didn't help. She was still so sad," end quote. Of course, the police kept going with their investigation, but it would be years before they had any new major developments.
You tell yourself no one wants your college-era band tees, but on Depop, people are searching for exactly what you've got. You once paid a small fortune for them at merch stands. Now, a teenager who calls them vintage will offer that same small fortune back. Sell them easily on Depop. Just snap a few photos and we'll take care of the rest. Who knew your questionable music taste would be a money-making machine? Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're gonna crack this case and prove we're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
You are... Gary the Snake. And your last name? The Snake.
Dream Team.
Hit new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home.
You're clearly working it.
Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG.
In 2013, Phil Torsney, a former FBI special agent, came out of retirement to continue investigating Amy's case. He was actually one of the main detectives working the case and spent over 20 years on it before he retired. Torsney reviewed all the evidence and came up with a plan to have some of it tested. He prioritized the curtain found in the ditch and Amy's clothing, but they kept the results of this testing private until 2016. They then revealed that the lab was able to recover tan fibers from Amy's clothing, which were traced back to carpet from a car, likely a GM product, manufactured between 1975 and 1978. They also discovered that some hairs found on the curtain were matched to Amy's dog. This led police to believe that Amy's body was likely wrapped in the curtain at some point. They then showed that curtain to the public for the first time and asked anyone who recognized it to please contact police. But despite this new information and an increase of the reward up to $50,000, it didn't lead to finding Amy's killer. In October 2019, WKYC released a 5-part series about Amy's murder. According to their reporting, a mechanic named Rick, who worked in an auto shop near the shopping center, told police that he'd seen Amy with the man who abducted her. He said that the abductor had parked a brownish gold GM vehicle in a narrow alley behind the shopping center that led to the main road. But at that time, Rick just thought it was a father picking up his daughter, and didn't think to record the license plate or any other details. Now, while this seemed like a pretty solid lead, police told WKYC that Rick had not mentioned this information during his initial interview with the police back in 1989. He didn't tell them about the GM for years. So really, the police dismissed this sighting, believing that Rick might have been confusing two separate events. WKYC also learned from the police that they can't conduct genetic testing on what little evidence they have. They explained, quote, "When you think of DNA today, you think of nuclear DNA. You think of blood. And you think of what you can do with that blood. You can get a profile from that DNA. You can put it into a database. And if the person is in that database, you're going to connect. We don't have that kind of DNA. So our DNA does not lend itself to being put into a database for comparison against a known population. So if we're going to do anything, we have to develop a suspect and then try to do a comparison on the back end." End quote. Police say that their DNA evidence includes 3, quote, fragile hairs all from white men, end quote, which were recovered from the curtain. While they have these hairs, they said that at this time, testing is a one-time opportunity, and the police were waiting for improved technology before proceeding. Basically, testing them at that point would use up all the evidence and it could not be tested again. During this 5-part series, WKYC interviewed Amy's brother Jason and her father Mark. Jason shared his thoughts on what Amy's life might be like today. He thinks she would have been bright, happy, and successful. Jason said that he hopes his sister's murder is solved, but he has to try to move forward with his life. He avoids listening to podcasts, reading articles, or watching documentaries about the case because it's just too painful. Mark also talked about his ongoing pain. He thinks about Amy every day, but no longer celebrates her birthday. Instead, he takes a moment to reflect on how old she would have been, and then continues with his day. He has faith his daughter's murder will be solved. And really, this solve feels closer than ever. So much has happened over just the last few years. In February 2021, ABC News 5 reported that back in 2019, a woman told the police that her ex-boyfriend should be looked into regarding Amy's murder. Now, the report didn't release the names of this woman or man, so I'm going to call the woman Stacy and her ex-boyfriend Thomas. According to a sworn statement from a detective in Bay Village, Stacy shared with the police that during the time Amy went missing, she and Thomas lived less than 1.5 miles away from the shopping center where Amy was abducted. She told the police that on the night Amy was taken, Thomas didn't come home, which was unusual. He had never disappeared like that before. The only time she heard from him that night was around 10 p.m., when he called to ask if she had heard about Amy's disappearance. And not only that, the detective noted that Thomas's appearance in late 1989 matched the description given by witnesses in 2 of the suspect sketches they had. And in May 2020, detectives met with the 2 students who saw Amy talking to a man at the shopping center on the day she disappeared. They identified Thomas from a photo lineup as the man they remembered seeing with Amy. According to the affidavit, at the time of Amy's murder, Thomas was working in Bay Village and had family there, including a niece in Amy's grade. Stacy also said that she believed she went on 1 or more trips with Thomas to Ashland County. And they confirmed that Thomas drove a gold Oldsmobile with a tan interior in 1989 and 1990. And it only goes deeper. In the affidavit, the detective says that an FBI agent noticed a gold Oldsmobile registered to Thomas passing near the place where Amy's body was found on the day she was discovered. The detective added that there was no clear reason why Thomas would have been there on that day. And according to the detectives, this man made suspicious comments during his interviews. He said that the years 1989 and 1990 were a dark period in his life, and suggested that he might have met Amy's mother Margaret in a bar. And they asked him outright if he had ever called Amy before her abduction. And Thomas said that it could have happened by mistake. He also initially said that he didn't believe Amy had been in his car, but later admitted it was possible, although he didn't know, quote, what the situation would have been, end quote. And it doesn't end there. Thomas also acknowledged the possibility of his DNA being found on the curtain near Amy's body, but said he didn't put it there. He suggested someone might have planted his DNA. Now, Thomas did agree to a DNA test and a polygraph exam. The results of the polygraph did indicate deception. The detectives then set up a meeting for the following day, where Thomas would sign paperwork allowing the police to search a storage unit. But he didn't show up for that meeting, so the police got a warrant and ended up searching it anyway. We know that they did seize some evidence, but those exact items are not specified. After this ABC News 5 article about Thomas was released, the Bay Village Police issued a statement about how they were still diligently working the case, but they wouldn't comment on Thomas. I mean, obviously, this is some pretty damning evidence, but we just don't know what happened with it. But in October 2021, 19 News reported that additional testing on the curtain concluded that Amy's hairs were also on there. This basically confirms the suspected connection between the curtain and Amy's murder. The police also mentioned that they were currently considering several individuals as potential suspects. They add that some of these individuals had recently come to their attention, while others had been under suspicion for many years. So they're not giving up information about Thomas. They did emphasize that they were relying on advancements in DNA technology to help with the investigation, but at that time, they were not actively testing any DNA samples. But a year later, in October 2022, the police say that a piece of evidence from Amy's case had been sent to a lab for further DNA testing. Now, this is actually where this episode ended when this script was originally written, but there's been a recent update in Amy's case. According to reporting by 19 News, 2 years later in the fall of 2024, just a few weeks before this episode airs, investigators found new evidence on Amy's sweatpants. Male DNA. They're hopeful that this will lead to identifying her killer, or at least get them closer to a resolution. Detective Sergeant Jay Ellish told Fox 8, quote, "Recently we tested her clothing, and we were able to find male DNA on her sweatpants. DNA on Amy's sweatpants in specific areas where you would not find male DNA. That's something we consider an incredible advancement in this case." End quote. However, according to Ellish, the amount of DNA that they do have is so small that they can't test it effectively. But he estimates that the technology could catch up as quickly as 6 months to a year. And in addition to this DNA that was found, they also found more hairs on the curtain and a blanket they believe she was wrapped in. And those hairs are currently being tested by the FBI. And that is pretty much where Amy's case is today. Overall, the police have pursued more than 10,000 leads, conducted tens of thousands of interviews, and looked into more than 7,000 potential suspects. They've also spent over $100,000 on testing in her case. And while they have not yet publicly identified a suspect, they continue to investigate Amy's case. And investigators, along with her father Mark, are hopeful that these new developments may lead to answers. Which brings me right to our call to action. Someone out there knows something about Amy's abduction and murder. Please share her case. Not only do I think it's important to keep the media pressure on, but also to keep talking about DNA technology and the importance of funding advancements in this field. As of recording this episode, it's been 35 years since Amy was abducted, but that doesn't mean that there isn't hope. Please share. As a reminder, Amy Mihaljevic was 10 years old when she was abducted on October 27, 1989, by a white man in the Bay Square Shopping Center in Bay Village, Ohio. Amy's body was found on February 8, 1990 on Country Road 1181 in rural Ashland County. Near her body, police recovered a pea green homemade curtain and a blanket. On Amy's clothing, police recovered fibers traced back to a tan-colored auto carpet from the years 1975 to 1978, likely from a GM product. Amy's windbreaker, boots, earrings, backpack, and GM binder are still missing. Anyone with information about this case is asked to call investigators at 1-877-FBI-OHIO or the Bay Village Police Department at 440-871-1234. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. This episode contains writing and research assistance by Haley Gray, and was fact-checked by Brooke Haynes. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The door to the studio is open, and our emotional support puppies are in the room. I'm gonna get emotional again. I never in this world expected to get another dog so soon, after Marley. We know that we lost Marley, not too long ago, less than a month ago. But let me tell you how I found Heber. His name is Heber. I was contacted about a listing for a dog because he looked so much like my Teddy. If you guys don't know, Teddy is a dog that I had for 17 years. He basically raised me. He felt like a brother. I love Teddy dearly. Just a mutt, brown, fluffy dog. And I was sent this listing, and basically a litter of dogs was found in the woods in it's Heber Overguard, Arizona. Just found in the woods. They tried to catch mom, couldn't catch mom. So they pulled the puppies, and Heber ended up going to a rescue. So I just went, I was like, I'm not ready for this dog. I don't know, but Popcorn, I told you guys that Popcorn was not doing well without Marley, and I was really, really concerned about him dying of a broken heart. I probably shouldn't have Googled it, but I did. I Googled, like, what does it look like if your dog's dying of a broken heart? And I panicked. So I saw this listing. I went to go see this dog, and I was like, I'm not ready. I don't think so. But of course, when I saw him, I fell in love, and it felt like it was meant to be, which sounds crazy, but let me explain. Heber was born on August 20th, which is or was Justice for Alyssa Day, a day that has been really, really hard for me. So at first I was like, oh my gosh, like how crazy is that, right? But, after I saw him and I was like, I need this dog. I can't say no to him. I love him. I'm going to bring him home to Popcorn. At the very end, the woman who runs this rescue, it's called Rachel's Rescue, slips in a flyer. She, at the very end, after I sent all the paperwork, and Heber is mine, and I'm holding him, ready to take him home, she's like, hey, I hope you don't mind. The whole reason I started this rescue was for my daughter, Rachel Hansen, who was killed, and I do this in her honor. Here's her silent witness poster. It's unsolved. And you guys, I was like, you have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding. How did the universe bring us together and make this happen? So of course I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a missing sister. This is crazy. I'm sorry to get emotional. I start crying. She starts crying. And we were both like, it was meant to be. And yeah, so that's how I got Heber. And now I'm going to cover Rachel's story on the podcast with her mother's blessing. So that's what's going on with me is I have a puppy now named Heber, and Popcorn loves him. Popcorn is no longer exhibiting those symptoms of extreme sadness and being really lethargic. He is a totally different puppy now. And while I feel like I slightly betrayed Marley by getting a new dog so soon, it just really felt meant to be. Heber looks so much like baby Teddy, and to be born on Justice for Alyssa Day and then go to this, out of the odds. This woman's rescue is in Gilbert. It's 4 hours away from where he was found. He could have gone anywhere, but he went to this rescue. I went to this rescue, and we found each other. So that's what's going on with me. I have a new puppy. And yeah, so we now have 2 emotional support puppies in the room with us. One is Heber and one is Popcorn. But before I get even crunchier about the universe bringing us together and more emotional, let's move on to the case. Oh my goodness. This was truly a very emotional one for me. I had to stop. I kept crying. My gosh, her mom sleeping on the floor that night. Those are the things that just break my heart. But I wanted to cover it. There was this new update. It was a case that I'd been working on for a long time, that Haley, researched and wrote for. Brooke did the fact checking. This has been a case that I knew was so large with so much information that I wanted to bring in as many people as possible to make sure that I got it correct. But of course, as we talk about media discrepancies, there are some, right? The timelines, description of her backpack. There was a lot of information to go through, but in general, I will say that most of the facts remain the same outside of those normal discrepancies that I see in almost every case. I do want to give a shout out to all the investigators on this case because I cover a lot of cases and a lot of older cases, and it's not as often as I would like that I see the dedication that I saw in this case. I mean, the agent coming out of retirement to help work the case again, it just feels like a lot of people are trying really, really hard to solve this. And I do feel like it's close. I'm not just saying that to entice you to share the podcast or whatever. This feels so incredibly close to being solved. I wish we knew what happened with Thomas. Maybe we'll find out. That story is insane. All the DNA technology, absolutely amazing. And I wonder, this, timeline of 6 months to a year for this technology to catch up. I wonder, and I hope it does. One of the things I wanted to point out was Jason's statement about not listening to podcasts, reading articles, or watching documentaries because it's all too painful. And I've said this before, but I think this is another good place to remind you guys that all true crime is painful. There is no true crime made that doesn't hurt someone. I mean, unless everybody that ever knew that person or is connected to that case is no longer with us, literally all true crime is painful and hurts someone. And it sucks. I wish it wasn't that way, and it's something that's really hard for me to deal with. I never want to make content that hurts somebody, and I'm not saying that it's intentionally hurtful or anything like that. I just think it's really important to recognize that it's just painful. Like you said, it's just painful, and I like to remind everybody of that when I can and when it's appropriate. At the end of the day, while true crime and coverage, I think, is incredibly helpful, there's just no way to make it, usually, without hurting someone. But I do want to talk about the hero of this episode, which is another point that I had to stop because I started crying. This is the mom of Amy's best friend who rushed to the news station with Amy's school picture and stayed there and refused to leave until they showed it on TV. I love that. I love you. That is one of the most amazing things I think I've come across in my time reporting on true crime. I love people like that. And it's hard, right? Because I'm not going to tell you to go march down to a news station and be ridiculous, right? But there's something about that peaceful protest of I am here, there is a missing child, I have her photo, and I am not leaving until you put it on air. I love that. You are the hero of this episode. You rock. I just love people who passionately advocate in peaceful ways for their people. So she is our hero of the episode. Other than that, I really don't have a lot of notes about this case. Pretty much everything I wanted to tell you is in the episode. With that being said, let's move on to our segment of hope, where again, I am likely to get emotional. As you guys know, I am quite close with Kelsey German, and in the case of her sister, Liberty German, and Abigail Williams, their killer just went to trial and was convicted. I'm not reading off of a news article. I'm just going off of what I know, to be totally honest with you. So I don't have a reference for that here. I just know what happened. And it makes our segment of hope because there's finally a resolution in this case. Finally, again, you guys know how I feel about the words justice and closure. But there are answers. The trial is over. And I just want to say also that, I'm going to get so emotional. Liberty German is a hero for recording that video, for staying with Abby. We should all be so lucky to have a Liberty German or an Abigail Williams in our lives. And I'm just really glad that they got some type of legal justice, if you will. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.